Okay, so today we're going to do some oil. So for the last couple of lives, we just did watercolor, gouache, and a bit of mixed media, some cutouts even, some collages. So if you haven't seen any of those, just go to the events tab here on the group, and all the previously shown lives are saved. They are really saved, and you can just find them all there, and you can watch all the other videos that you might find interesting. So today we'll be doing a winter scene. So I chose this photo. Okay, so I'll be doing it without the wolf. Okay, so don't worry. So just the landscape. So it's a misty, frosty, like forest, winter forest scene. So it's a very doable landscape in oil. So I hope I'll be able to show it to you, and you'll be able to replicate it, or do it your own way. So remember, when you have your reference photo, don't feel obliged to copy it exactly. Okay, so it's just there to help you out with the composition, with how things are balanced, and colors, but feel free to interpret them your own way as well, because it's your artwork, and you do whatever you want. Okay, it's also the best time to explore. So even when I copy, for example, a person, I don't exactly copy the skin color. I paint it my own way. So uh, as long as it's not a portrait commission, well, if it's a commission, then it has to look the same. But otherwise, if it's your own personal interpretation, then have fun with it. Okay, so I'm going to flip my camera down, and I'm gonna flip it around. So don't be surprised if it keeps flipping around. I'm just going to make it the right way. Okay, so bear with me. Let me just flip it and then flip it down. Okay, so now you see my desk. So I have here the reference photo on my iPad. So this is very useful when I have a reference photo, because I don't have to print it out. It's just there. Okay, so I'll put it here. And for this exercise, I'm just going to use an oil pad. So you can buy this in pad form. So it comes like this, for example. So I use this for little exercises, smaller works, and you don't always have to use mounted canvas or canvas boards. So this is like a sketch pad paper, but it's if you look at it closely, it has the texture of canvas, but it's actually paper. And most oil pads already come primed with gesso, so you don't need to prime it unless you want to make the finish really smooth. And if you're happy already with a pre-primed finish, then you can just go ahead and start painting on it. So in this case, I'm going to divide this in half. I'm just going to use half. Okay, so it's up to you. You can make a whole thing of the whole spread. This pads also come in different sizes. So this one that I have, it's kind of huge. So I'm gonna just make it smaller so that I can finish it faster as well. Otherwise, it's gonna take longer. Okay, so you just fold it, cut it, and then what I do is I also mount it to a board. So for example, I have my extra mixing plate, my extra palette. So I don't really get to use this because it's kind of heavy, and I tend to use acrylic or glass or mixing plates like this, where you can tear off the page and just use a new one. Okay, so once I have this here, I just tape it around so that it doesn't move around, especially when I'm going to do some blending later. Okay, so it's up to you what surface you prefer to paint on. Okay, so I'm just gonna mount it, so just bear with me. I'm just doing this for those who want to see how my entire process is. So it also gives it that extra edge, so that if you have your work frame later on, then none of your work is lost in the framing. So it's like you already gave the framers this section where they can overlap the matting on. Okay, so let me just mount this and we can start. So the nice thing about this winter scene is just you just use a limited palette. So that's the best way to explore your painting. You start with limited palettes and see how you can make things work. And then you slowly add colors to your arsenal and slowly explore how the colors mix, how they look like, you know. So working with the limited palette really helps you master your color mixing. So at first it seems like it's so tedious, you know, you have to mix so many colors just to be able to paint them on your work. But it will really help you, especially if you suddenly run out of colors, then you know how to make them. Okay, so again, this is my reference photo. So you don't have to copy it exactly, just get the general vibe of it. You know, if you like the composition, then, you know, just keep that in mind. And I'm not even going to sketch this, okay? So I'm just going to paint directly and just keep checking the reference back and forth. Okay, so I'm going to prepare my materials. Okay, so I'll be using colors from our essential palette. Okay, so we have 3 different palettes. Today I'm going to use the essential because this is the starter oil paint palette that you need. It has all the starter colors that you need, that you can mix all the other colors. You can mix practically almost everything. Okay, so it has white, 2 yellows, 2 reds, 2 blues, and even a black. So white, 2 of each primary color. You have your warm and cool version of each primary. So your warm yellow, warm red, cool red, warm blue, cool blue. Okay, so let's, for this exercise, I'm just going to use cobalt blue, okay, some cadmium red, and then white. Okay, so why would I get cadmium red? So again, this is the photo. So my own interpretation is I don't want it too gray. I'd rather have it like bluish, purplish. So that's my version. So it's up to you. If you want it to be more blue-gray, then go that way. Interpret it your own way. Okay, so I'm going to squeeze some color on my palette. Okay, so this palette is for the lazy like me. I don't want to keep cleaning, so I use a palette that you can just squeeze out paint. You can use them and you can just remove this page and use a fresh one. Okay, but even I don't immediately, you know, throw it away. If there's still some space, I'm still gonna use it. So I'm not gonna squeeze too much out of the red because red is really it's a very strong color. You don't need much, and you have to be careful when you use it when you're mixing, because if you overdo it, then you have to keep piling in all the other colors just to fix your mistake. So just work with red carefully. Okay, so I'm going to squeeze out a lot of white because we're going to be using more white. Okay, so usually you would buy more white than all the other colors. You easily run out of white. So if you're gonna, there's one color that you have more than the others, it will be white. Okay, so when I paint with oils, I usually just have my container here of linseed oil, and then I just have my solvent. So I use odorless mineral spirits. So it's up to you what your solvent is when you paint. When I use odorless mineral spirits, I still have them in a glass jar, and I just have the lid on. I open the lid when I use it, and then I close it back when I'm not. But there are also more eco-friendly solvents that you can get if they're, you know, more available to you. Zest It has really citrus-based solvents that you can use, so you can you know, paint without thinking about fumes and such. And our paints are eco-friendly. They are, you know, toxic free, So don't be afraid to use them. You know, some people they have to wear gloves and such. So with our paints, you can relax. It's non-toxic, so you can freely use it if you have children or pets and things like that. Okay, so let's start. Okay, so if you want to sketch, you can do that. In my case, I'm going to use brushes from our Renoir collection. These are especially made for oil and acrylic. So these are natural hair brushes. Okay, so when you use natural hair, it has more texture. You can paint more texture with your works. So I'm going to get my fan brush. This will be very useful for the pine trees that we'll be painting. And then I'll also get this one, the wide flat brush, because this I will be using this for the smooth blending on some parts. And then I'm also going to get my filbert, just for the parts where I need to, you know, do more detailing maybe. So I'll just have it ready. And that's it. If I think I feel like I need more later, I'm just going to get more brushes. But for now, these three are enough. And then I'll just also have my palette knife ready. Okay, so let's start. So I'm going to start with using my fan brush. Okay, so this is my mixing plate. I'm going to get some blue. Okay, some red. So I'm trying to get this like deep purple. Okay, so depending on what kind of purple you want to achieve, try to experiment with your different blues, your different reds, to see what purple you get when you mix them together. Because depending on the color bias of your primaries, you will get different kinds of purple. You can get really vibrant purples or really muted purples. So depending on what you need, you should know. So just keep that in mind when you're doing your work. Okay, so just have a cloth or a paper towel ready so you can wipe off extra paint. All right, so now that I have this nice purple, I'm just gonna dip my fan brush on my linseed oil just to wet it. Okay, so it doesn't have to be dripping. So your oil is like your water if you were painting with acrylic or watercolor. So with oil, your oil is your binder, and it can also you can fatten your paint with it. So if you want to make your paint dry faster and you want to paint thinner, then you use solvent. You mix solvent with your oils. But if you want it to be fatter for the later layers, then use your linseed oil. So don't overuse it. Okay, so let's see if I like the purple, and then I'll just add more blue if I feel like I want it deeper. So I just pre-mix a little, and then I take a look at what I have on my brush, and you can just use your brush to mix it. Okay, so I like it. So I'm going to use my my fan brush to create this texture of the trees, like this. Okay. Add a bit of white at the bottom. Okay, so let's add some oil just to make it smoother and spread. Okay, so just applying it like this, just roughly. So that's how you start your trees. Okay, so I'm not gonna touch a lot of this. It will be white later on. Then I'll add more white here at the bottom. And then that's why I have this brush, because I will be doing some like quick blending. Okay, so I'm just gonna do circular motions because it's misty below, and you want to show that misty effect. but you want also to have the tops of the trees, which are darker and more visible. So just keep a balance of keeping the top parts unblended and the lower parts softly blended. So if you like what you have, then you have your colors already mixed. Okay, so then you can keep on working. So the nice thing about oils is even if you know, you've already decided what you're going to do, what colors, and you feel like you didn't like how it looked like, well, you can always change it up. You can still remove it, wipe it off. You can paint on top of it. It can still be totally fixed. Okay, so before I go there, I'm just going to add a white sky here. I know it's white, I'm going to use white, but don't worry. I will add little dabs of purple, just very little, just to give it like that nice stain. Okay, so just apply it roughly. If you want more texture, then you just paint it thicker. But in my case, I want this nice misty, just soft effect. So I'm not really aiming to paint it too thick. So just this texture is fine with me. Okay, so again, it's up to you. What's your preference? Feel free to paint it your own way. Okay, so I'm going to cover this whole like bowl-shaped white here with a dash of purple. So that's the sky part. So if you look closely at your work, just really very, very minor staining of the purple. Okay, so I'm just going to cover that. So it's curving like this. I'm going to cover that whole thing, and then I will overlap the first row of trees on top. Okay, so now that I have this, I can start on the other trees. Okay, so that's why it's important to have your cloth or your paper towel or whatever you opt to use handy so that you can wipe off excess paint. Okay, so I like this combination, so now I can squeeze out more paint so I can be ready for all the purples and blues. Okay, so I don't squeeze out too much unless I'm sure of my mixture, that I like it, so that I don't unnecessarily waste paint, though you can still use it for other things as it won't immediately dry. You still have about 1 to 2 days. So that's the nice thing about oil. There's less chance of waste. Okay, and if it gets messy, just clean up. So I'm not too worried with oil because with just a dish cleaner, you can really clean up after yourself. Okay, so let me just mix again here. I hope you can still see it. All right, so I'm adding blue again, a bit of red, again just to get that purplish haze. Again, it's up to you what kind of tree line colors you want. Okay, so I want this more purplish effect, so that's what I'm going for. Now I'm doing my next row, applying a bit on the first just to retouch the top of the trees since I covered it with a bit of white. Okay, and then your blender brush, just blend it, circular motions, trying to keep the top of the trees. Okay, so just using your fan brush like this, you get to, you know, show that it has like the textures of the tree, but not overly doing it. Okay, so they have to go, the rows don't have to be going one same way. That's gonna look weird. So try to create uneven rows. Actually, you can see it in your reference photo. So I will share the photo later if you want to use the same one, or you can find one that you like. But I will share what I'm using now so that you can use it for yourself as well. And now I'm going to add white here, just like what I did earlier at the one top, the bottom, more white, and then blending. Okay, so you want to do the blending because you want the misty effect. If there's too much paint, remove and just blend. And just add white for some parts that need more white. Okay, so that's the nice thing about oil. You can just keep on blending and just keep on working, and you get to create your work without, you know, pressure of having to finish it quickly. You can work on it and leave it for another day. So what do you guys like to use when you paint? Do you like to paint with oils? Or do you prefer water-based medium? So I'm just going on some parts, adding extra treetops, and here too. Okay, so just utilize the edges of your brush. Okay, so become familiar with your tools. If you experiment with your brushes, oh, oils, so great. Experiment with how you can use your brushes. I like the fan brush because you can really easily create interesting textures out of just this one brush. Okay, so now I'm also going to add the trees here from the side. So you can actually create a series out of this. Trees that are more blue grayish, more purplish, more green grayish. Some people like to work with covering one theme and doing 2 to 3 paintings at the same time. So you might also want to try that, for example. It might work for you. You might be able to create different works out of one theme. Okay, so now I have that. I'm just filling in the parts where I see the lines of the trees are, leaving gaps where I will be adding white. And then here, continuing the line of the trees. So take your time. That's the nice thing about oils, is you can really totally take your time and keep experimenting on your work. Here there are slightly visible trees. So it's like I'm just sketching out the parts that I want. Oh, okay. So you have to do a do-over. Well, at least you're already, you know, working on it. It's not Christmas yet, so you have time. Okay, so for now, I'll leave that and then add the white. Okay. Again, circular motions just to make it softer. So it looks misty. Okay. Remember, you can always do the treetops again. Okay, so if I feel like it's too purplish, I just wipe it off so I can get a fresher white. Okay, now I'm adding here. So I'm adding the parts that I left spaces in between. And then I'll just fill it up again later with... What do you mean you can't see? Sorry. Do you want me to zoom it further? Okay, let me see. How about now? Okay, there you go. Okay, so I'm blending again below the tree lines. Okay, so feel free to use a smaller brush if you want to do more finer blending. In my case, I'm already happy with this, but do whatever works for you. Okay, so we all have our different processes. Okay, so again, on below, I'm going to again blend the below of the dark tree line. And remember, I'll just go over them again with another dabbing of my fan brush after. Okay, so now I'm going to wash this off because I want a more cleaner white for the bottom. Okay, so just have your solvent ready so that you can clean your brushes when you need to. So if you have like favorite brushes that you keep on using, then you need solvent on the ready so that you can clean them when you need to. Okay, so now I'm going to squeeze out more white. I'm just going to squeeze it out directly here. Okay, so remember, your work is a work in progress, so don't judge it too soon when you're still not done with it. You know, sometimes like you get discouraged because it's not looking like how you envisioned it. So don't stress out. Wait for, you know, your process to just continue. And later on, you'll realize that was just the awkward stage. And now it's starting to come together. So don't judge your work too soon. Okay. So I have my mist. And then I'm just going to soften it. I'm just going to do the brush strokes in one like movement, like how the mist would be moving. So I'm slowly refining some parts. Going over some parts again, changing brushes. So basically I'm so far been using two brushes, my wide flat and my fan brush. So just with two brushes you can do a lot of interesting details. So again, I'm going over the parts where I want to add more detail. But again, I'm not looking to add, you know, very detailed trees. These are all very suggestive because again, we're doing a misty landscape scene. I'm going to blend this top part because the trees here are really covered with mist even at the top. So I'm just going to smooth out the top section, but just the bare edges, not too deep in. you still want the tree shapes to be there. So again, use your own choices when you want to do this. Do you want to follow your reference more closely, or if you work like me where you can, you have your own interpretation. So again, that's up to you. So each our own original interpretations always make our works very interesting, because that's how we see things. So it's like when you're in a class where you paint one same subject, and yet your works come out very differently from each other. That's always been a very interesting aspect for me when group painting or group sketching. Okay, and for this part, there's like a ridge here, so I'm just adding that slight texture. Then again, blending it softly so that it's covered in mist. Okay, and then there's also some texture here. It's not completely white, so I'm also going to do that. There's still some paint on the brush, just enough, so it's actually perfect. So it's like a cloudy haze here at the bottom. So I'm just using the leftover paint from my brush to create textures. Then some parts are a bit darker, so I'll just add more paint. So just get what you like out of your reference photo. You don't have to copy everything unless you're a hyper realist, because otherwise it can be so stressful. Don't feel pressured to copy everything. Think of your reference as inspiration, and use your own interpretation of it and have fun. Okay, so enjoy your work, enjoy the process. And even if you don't like the finished look, that's fine. The process is more important because it helps you learn, it helps you find your preferences. It's always a journey of discovery. Okay, so I'm just gonna work on this section and I'll be done. Just a quick misty landscape scene. Very easy, very fun, very relaxing. So I'm just creating higher parts, darker parts, to give it more depth. So for this, I like to use my reference as a guide to see which parts are darker. And I'm almost done. But again, you can come back to it tomorrow and take a look at your work and see if maybe with fresher eyes you feel like you want to add something somewhere, So just have fun with oils, because you can totally take your time with it and come back to it later on, and it'll still be workable. So that's the advantage of oil over acrylic. And then it's very forgiving with mistakes, with corrections, with add-ons, quite forgiving. So you can really experiment, and you can, fix it up the next day, later, whenever. Okay, so even works that I have that have been a few years old, I can still add to it. So that's the wonderful thing about oils. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with this. I hope you were able to understand what I've been doing here. It's really very relaxing, and just having a reference photo makes it easier composition wise. But then again, you don't have to be married to it. You can change it up. For example, my reference photo had wolves, but I'm not painting the wolves in, just the scenery. And this is my winter landscape. I hope you liked it, and I hope you will also try it out. Yes, I know, right? I don't really often use it because I don't always paint landscapes, but I find with landscapes, seascapes, those things, it comes in very handy because it really gives you a lot of texture, really natural looking texture that comes in handy. So really, when you experiment with your brushes, you get to know them better. You realize, oh, I can do this, this, this. But for now, this is my oil winter landscape. Just misty, just easy, and just really very mysterious. So I hope you liked it. Okay, and now I'll flip back to my face so I can say goodbye to you guys properly. Okay, so, and then zoom out. It's too zoomed in. Okay, and here is my winter landscape. Okay, I hope you like it. I like it enough. I'll see tomorrow if I'm going to add to it or not. But right now, I like the mysteriousness of it, misty. In my version, I used a purplish tinge to my winter landscape. You can do whatever you want with yours. Feel free to play around with it, have fun with it, and enjoy your oils. So thank you for joining me and staying with me, and I hope you try it out. And if you do, please share your own version to the group. I'd be so happy to see it. Okay, so happy holidays, everyone, and bye.